All right, let's talk about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Last week we took a detour to talk about some Superman comics series I've been reviewing. Next week we are going to talk about more Superman comics that tie into the Christopher Reeve movies, and then we will eventually talk about Superman Returns somewhere in there. This movie is obviously the worst of the Superman movies. It's the shortest. Thank God, it's only an hour and a half. Because man, if this movie had been any worse, this movie has a whole backstory. Yes, this film was put out by Warner Brothers, but essentially it was made by Canon Films, and there's a whole backstory for that. I forget the whole story, but because of that, Canon Films was known for these low budget, kind of schlocky movies, and some of you all who grew up with Canon Films may not want me to talk about it that way, but it's, you know, as much as those films have nostalgia and love now, I'm not saying they're like unwatchable, horrible movies, but they are not like quality movies in a sense, right? And they have their appeal and they have their audience now, but when they came out, they weren't good, right? Over the top, things like that. And so this movie is just like that in a lot of ways. Um, it's just not good. It is very schlocky. The effects aren't great. The other problem with this movie is, I guess, there's a bunch of people meddling with this movie, and Christopher Reeve wanted to like make this movie about nuclear weapons and have a whole message about it, which is very bizarre. Because basically, the plot of this movie is Christopher Reeve, Superman gets told like, "Hey, go get rid of all these bombs." Takes him up, throws him in the sun, ends up creating a supervillain that has Superman's powers. They fight it out, and that's it. And the fight's very lame and pathetic, really, because they just didn't have the money for anything else. Like, he's like literally smashing him into the ground. It was like, there's nothing really interesting in this movie. There's no real interesting characters. Um, it there's nothing, there's no real angle for the characters, right? You would think after Superman 2 they would try to do more of that angle with him having issues with his powers and just keeping his secret identities, but they really didn't continue on with that. They just kind of started doing a bunch of random stuff that didn't really flow together anymore, and by this point the Superman franchise was dead. We didn't get another Superman movie until 2006 when Superman Returns came out, because this movie was just not good on every level. It was very mediocre, and I was just so done and checked out with this movie. Let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe.